Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to a quick review of Mordew by Pheby. What I want to do is give a brief overview of the book is about, tell you the things that I liked and tell you the things that I didn't like. This was the book of the month for the month of September 2024, recommended by Bibliomanic. Recommended quite emphatically over the course of many comments. Therefore, some would say this is the most high-stakes book of the month of all time. And did it stick the landing? Controversial answer, I don't know. I don't know. This is quite a strange book. Going into the overview, it's about a child named Nathan Treves. He lives in this weird little city called Mordew. The tone is it's kind of like storybook, like dark humor meets gothic. It's very interesting in tone. It's one of those books that starts off very fourth wall breaky, where the author is like, here's at the back of the book there is a glossary, but should you read it, perhaps may chance you shan't. Perhaps you should not enjoy this book as much if you read the glossary. And here are some of the kooky things that you'll encounter in this book. And there's this really long list of like little tidbits about the characters and the kookiness that you'll encounter. And I first read that, I'm like, this is going to be a really like Terry Pratchett-esque Discworld, funny, weird. Ooh, but it's kooky weird. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's what I was expecting going into that. And then that's the only time that ever happens in the book. And it goes into this story, and it is like kind of depressing. Like, this is like a kid who lives in the slums. He's fighting for survival. His dad is on death's door. He's scrimping and saving to try to save his poor papa. It's a weird book, and it's a very weird setting. The setting, the city of Mordew, is a major character in this book. It's controlled by this wizard, the master, and there's like weird magic elements going on. There's the living mud, where it's like it turns things alive. It makes like abominations and stuff. Very interesting setting. And it operates by like strange magic rules, where it's kind of like you get the sense where like you would never fully understand how this world operates. It's a very unique magic system in this way. Very like I said, gothic like atmosphere, where it's like everyone's miserable and there's this weird. It's just weird. Overall it's weird. And the story itself, it kind of like is separated into like three chunks. It's like three separate storylines of Nathan, right? And I will say, like, I think all of the stories by themselves, like, were interesting, were engaging. By no means is this a bad book. I'm very glad I read it. So for that reason, like, good on you. Good on you, Bibliomanic. It's a good book. However, like, I just don't know if I loved it. And so it starts off very grounded. It's Nathan on the ground. He's fighting for survival. He's working with other kids to try to get some fortune. And then it transitions more into the magic, more into the world building. And then the third act is just like a deconstruction of the world, and like shit hits the fan, and it's just, things just get like, they start very grounded, small scale, and they end very big scale, without giving spoilers about what exactly happens. And like I said, I liked all three of those storylines while enjoying them. The grounded part, the learning of the world, the magic, the world building part, and then like the conclusion part. I liked them all individually. I don't know if I liked them all being in this book, though. The version I read it on my like digitally, got it from Libby. It's like around 600 pages, and it didn't feel like it was like too long, or that it dragged, or that any section was rushed. So it wasn't like a pacing issue necessarily. I just felt like you could have wrote a book just on like the street stuff, just on like Nathan like learning like his magic, using his magic on the streets, his slums, and like exploring the city like from a street level, rather than rushing so quickly into the world building, bringing outside factors in, and like really like advancing this plot into like a wider scope very quickly. And the book ends, and I'm not going to spoil it, the book ends in a very, it's not a confusing ending. It's very clear what happens, but it's confusing in the sense where it's like, what did the author What was the author trying to say by ending in that specific way? And I know there's sequel, or at least one sequel. There might be more sequels planned, because this is a relatively new book. I believe this was published in 2020, Mordew was, so it's relatively new fantasy. I don't know where it goes from here. I read the blurb for the second book, so I do know kind of where it goes. But my question to that is why? Like, why? You know what I mean? Do you ever just read a book and go, why? That's kind of how I feel about this. And I wish it was just about the city, the world, the weirdness of it. I think the tone is very good. He has a lot of interesting, quirky characters that play into the story, which I all did enjoy. I think there's like the talking dog is an interesting character. I think everyone, the master and his like servants are very interesting characters. The children that Nathan works with are all very interesting in their own right. And there's some that are like kind of distorted by magic in this weird magic world. I wanted to sit in that a little bit with Nathan as our protagonist, because he's kind of like our blank slate. He's not super quirky. He's just more like he's just a kid, but he's the focus of this story in this world. I wanted to spend more time with him as like the vehicle in this world. And the way the first book ends, we're not going to get that same experience into the second book, because things have gone haywire by the end of the book. And I almost wish that wasn't the case. So I would say in summary, it's a great exercise in like world building, and like I feel like it was a creative twist on like maybe like a fantasy magic world, because of the mixture of like this kind of darker but like kind of like sly tone of the author mixed with this kind of gothic weird magic and its quirky characters interacting with this kind of strange magic. It's very, very interesting, and that's probably its greatest compliment, is that it is interesting. I just don't know if the story beats were that interesting, perhaps, or maybe the way that they were laid out, it just didn't jive with me super well, because it's like some parts we really sit in, some parts we rush through. And the things that we rush through, in my opinion, seemed too big. And it distorted the story in a way that I wasn't comfortable with, and I didn't want necessarily. The things I enjoyed about this book clearly wasn't the author's favorite part about writing a book, which might be an interesting way to describe it. The things that I liked the most, the author clearly didn't like the most. So there's a bit of a disconnect there in terms of what I was getting out of this book. Overall, though, I am glad I read it. There was never a period where I thought that this is dumb, this is boring, this is lame. It's very distinctly an artistic work, and for that, you got to give it credit. And you know what? I encourage people to check it out, in fact. So in that way, Bibliomanic, you're on thin ice, buddy. You're on thin ice. Because I didn't love it. And it seems like you loved it, and I'm very curious to see why. And I think that you're going to give me a good answer, which is why I'm saying I'm not going to take away your certified reader status. I'm just saying it didn't blow my socks off, okay? But I liked it. It was a good time. Great recommendation. Is it Stake Your Reputation worthy on, though? I'm not sure quite crosses that threshold, perhaps. And because you give good recommendations in the past, let's just say you're at a blank slate. So this is my challenge to you. You got to come up with a third recommendation to really cement. Are you a hack, or do you have good taste? Not to say that this is a bad book. It's very interesting. I encourage people to check it out because I want to see what other people think. I'd never heard of this book before. I read it. I don't really know if I don't know. I just don't know how to feel about it. And I read some good read reviews, and these people like hate the book. I'm like, you're being dramatic. It's not that bad. So public reviews are not something you should trust. Although I guess this is public, right? Or are we a private corner of the universe, right, guys? Aren't we all in this together? Goodreads is a cesspool, though. I don't know who's writing those reviews and if they actually even read the books that they're reviewing, but they certainly have very strong opinions. I don't know if I feel that strongly about that. Overall, very interesting read. And be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and you want to see more like in the future. And everyone else, give your recommendations for what you'd like the book of the month to be in the future. And it's Stake Your Reputation on worthy. This isn't just your average recommendations. If you want to do an average recommendation, just like, hey, you should do this. But if you want like me to like judge you for it, say like, this is like, I would stake my reputation on this book. This is a good book, and like I would bet my life that it's true. because I am the ultimate czar of these things. I decide what is good and what is bad. And I'm humble too, which is great. Thanks for sticking around.